A massively flipped class. Designing and implementing active learning information literacy instruction for a large enrollment course by Julia E. Rodriguez. Presentation by Jennifer Hopkins. What is flipped classroom? A flipped classroom learning environment occurs when students have the opportunity to interact with the instructional material before learning it from the instructor in the classroom. This is usually done through videos, tutorials, practice exercises, quizzes, and lectures viewed at home before the class begins. In this type of learning environment, class time is used for students to participate in hands-on activities, including group work, exploration, and interactive discussions. Instructors act as guides to facilitate learning through exploration. They implement activities that allow students to interact with the new knowledge. Flipped classroom originated in secondary education as a way to extend and personalize instruction to meet the diverse learning needs of students. It has typically been used in this setting with small classes. The flipped classroom model can help librarians overcome time constraints and content limitations associated with one-shot library instruction sessions. This is sometimes called inverted classroom because it inverts the roles of classroom and home, with instruction happening at home and interaction and application of knowledge occurring in the classroom. What does the literature say? Although a fairly new concept, researchers have studied the flipped classroom model at the college level with some promising yet surprising results. For example, the freeing up of class time allows students to more actively engage in learning activities, and they receive immediate, meaningful feedback from the instructor. The instructor is also able to more easily gauge student progress through their interactions in class. This puts a greater responsibility for learning on the student, which could have positive or negative results. Some studies used student feedback and research observation to decide that the less predictable class structure associated with the flipped classroom may be inappropriate for introductory courses where students are not very invested in the subject area. Furthermore, multiple studies found that test scores and grades were the same compared to traditional teaching, and students thought that they were required to do more work for the same result, leading to demotivation. Additionally, the literature shows that flipped classroom students progressed faster and covered more content, but spent less time studying in college courses. Shifting gears, librarians have been using active learning techniques for the short lessons that they instruct for many years, and they are experimenting with the flipped classroom method through recorded lectures, embedded lessons, and instructional tutorials to experiment with flipped classroom learning. The flipped classroom methods provide effective and meaningful instruction with information literacy concepts, specifically improving student performance in many cases. This is the result of collaboration and co-teaching between librarians and professors who are using flipped classroom for teaching information literacy. This has resulted in overwhelmingly positive feedback from faculty and from students. Some studies have found improved student outcomes and deeper understanding of concepts that could be directly applied to practice. However, the literature is still showing mixed results. Some test scores with this approach by librarians still remain the same as traditional methods. This may be more of a commentary on quality of test questions rather than the effectiveness of the approach. This article closely looks at a case study of collaboration between university professors and the librarian in providing information literacy instruction to students. Oakland University health science professors sought the aid of the health sciences librarian to enhance information literacy instruction, an area where they saw their students lacking in knowledge. The health sciences librarian used the university's primary management system, Moodle, in conjunction with online modules to provide instruction. These online tools were used to implement flipped classroom with the goal of preparing students for face-to-face instruction in the classroom with the librarian and the professor. Flipped classroom preparation was assigned by the professor as homework before the face-to-face session with the librarian and typically included a short narrative, a video tutorial, a task completion exercise using a tool or practicing a skill that was discussed, and concluded with a review quiz question. This was used as a means of review rather than of assessment, with feedback provided to students about their chosen answer. Social software was also used to allow students to post their completed work and help to create a group classroom environment. Face-to-face sessions. In this case study, each session lasted about 75 minutes. They began with brief lectures built upon subjects covered in the online lessons. For example, how to find library guides online. The sessions were systematic but flexible and included an introduction by the professor, the health sciences librarian actively demonstrating a concept, and students answering a clicker question relating to homework content. These sessions then moved to in-class activities in groups using the Padlet bulletin board application in Moodle to post results in real time. These in-class activities each lasted between 15 and 20 minutes, and there were 2 to 3 activities per session. The posted results were displayed on large screens at the front of the classroom. During this time, the librarian was gauging knowledge and providing immediate assistance or feedback. There was also sometimes a brief synopsis at the end of the class period, summing up what was covered. There were many challenges in implementing the flipped classroom instructional method to large lecture halls. These included difficulty with online completions of lessons activities at home with no way for professors to see if students had finished lessons. Students were then required to print out their results, and professors had to hand grade hundreds of papers. Forming groups with large classes was also difficult, with engagement and participation in activities difficult to monitor. Additionally, student engagement dropped off by the second in-class activity based upon student feedback. Technical glitches with execution were also a problem, resulting in loss of productive time in class. Issues like the display on Padlet being jumbled and difficult for students to identify, the screen flashing each time a new comment was added to the application, and only one screenshot at a time was being displayed, so the librarian was tasked with switching between instructions and the Padlet display. These were all challenges that the instructors had to overcome. Several changes were made to aid in the success of future flipped classroom endeavors. In this case study, the professors utilized Moodle tools to record Y or N for completed lessons at home. Adjustments were also made to the Padlet display so that it was easier to differentiate comments. Additionally, only 1 to 2 in-class activities were scheduled for each session, with more time devoted to each. In one of the biggest and most effective lessons learned, colleagues would sit in on classes and provide specific feedback and suggestions to the instructors. Automated grading of questions was implemented to motivate timely completion of online lessons. The health sciences librarian was also added as a teaching assistant for the course to help with technical issues with content. Time devoted to information literacy instruction was expanded for health sciences classes. This also resulted in the expansion of flipped classroom instruction to more health sciences courses. So, what does this mean? Flipped classroom requires collaboration between the professor and the librarian. Engagement and commitment from both sides is necessary to be successful. Flexibility and fluidity in face-to-face sessions is imperative because students will have different gaps in knowledge during each session. Group work, posting completed work in real time, and active in-class discussions are motivating methods for student engagement. Instructors must avoid the desire to lecture during face-to-face sessions, which is completely different than traditional methods. However, large groups still remain a challenge for flipped classroom instruction. In conclusion, student-centered flipped classroom instruction is challenging and time-consuming, but worth implementing.